All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. As folks come into our webinar today, I just want to say thank you. We'll get started here pretty quick. I'm excited to have with us Kenyatta Turner. Hello, ma'am.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Excited to be here, Nisa.
Likewise, super excited that you're here. I love the behavioral superpowers conversations, and I'm really looking forward to this piece for sure.
Yes.
Hello, Jeff. Are you with us as well?
Hey, everybody. I am
All
here.
right. Nice to see you, sir. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Kenyatta, would you go back to the first slide? I just wanted a few extra folks have come in.
I just barely touched it.
There you go.
I'm not touching the mouse.
Going to be sensitive today. Our conversation today is about the platinum triangle of communication superpowers. And I'm very excited to introduce you guys to Kenyatta Turner, behavioral superpowers coach and Freedom Empire Consulting. Coach, influence, and protect is her motto. But before we begin today, and I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Morris and Kenyatta, I'd like to introduce you guys to our sponsors. Without our sponsors, our Leading in a Crisis virtual summit would not be possible. And our sponsors are David Whitmarsh and the Whitmarsh Consulting Group. David Whitmarsh and his group of pretty talented folks specialize in HR information technology consulting and HR consulting and multi-channel marketing. I also want to say thank you to Insperity. Insperity is our other sponsor, and without them, our Leading in a Crisis Summit would not be possible. When I went to Insperity and I said, would you mind sponsoring? They didn't hesitate. But they also did something that was pretty remarkable. I said, I'm asking everyone that participates to give something away, something of value, something that's meaningful, and something that will be helpful to helping our clients and friends and peers get through this difficult time. And they thought about it and they said, well, how about a free HR financial analysis report and debrief? And I said, well, what is that? And they shared with me, well, we're going to sit down and review some documents that they give to us confidentially, and then we'll help them with an HR budget analysis. And I said, well, that sounds kind of intense. What's that consist of? In a nutshell, it's 3 to 10 hours worth of work for free. We happen to know that many of our HR peers are going to have their budgets turned upside down because of this crazy time. And so if that's supportive of you, don't hesitate to reach out. They know that not everyone that's going to take advantage of that is a good fit, and that doesn't matter. That's not what that's about. So you can find more about that report at turnkeycoachingsolutions.net/HR report. And finally, let's move on into a couple of items related to, there we go. My name is Anissa Avon. I'm the CEO of Turnkey Coaching and Development Solutions. My team and I specialize in enterprise learning and development. And I want you guys to know about this summit. We have 40 plus speakers and counting. We're going to be inviting these experts to join us in webinars like this every Wednesday and Thursday throughout April and then into May now. So don't hesitate to go back to our portal, the Leading in Crisis portal. Kenyatta, if you'll hit that button one more time. Aha, there it is. And check out our new speakers that are coming on all the time. Things from strategy to crisis management to digital recruiting and more. So thank you for joining us. And let me move into, go ahead. Real quickly, we are offering this training and other things for organizations, not at our typical price, just buy one, get one. It's not the same as free, but it's pretty close. So you can contact us at turnkeycoachingsolutions.com or leader@turnkeycoachingsolutions.com. And then we also have 2 other pieces that we're offering. One is crisis management strategy planning for name your own price. And the other is one of our high tech meets high touch hybrid digital and personal coaching for outplacement services or for retained leaders. If you are in the situation where you have dispersed workers and you're looking to retain your leaders that you have kept on the books, let me know. You can reach me at 281-469-4244 or go to turnkeycoachingsolutions.net/NYOP outplacement. Right. Now, I'm super excited to introduce you guys to Kenyatta Turner. Kenyatta is a behavioral superpowers coach, which I mentioned earlier. She's a business consultant. She's a motivational educator, a speaker. She's an accredited business DNA consultant through DNA Behavior. She's the owner and primary consultant inside Freedom Empire Consulting, where she coaches, influence, and protects clients around the world. Kenyatta also serves as the Director of Strategic Partnerships and Community Engagement for Dream Smart Academy, and has served on the National Advisory Council for Dream Smart, Inc., a 501c3. One of the things that I love most about Kenyatta is her enthusiasm for serving, giving back, and when I first saw the motto protect, I thought, well, that's an interesting thing to have. But the truth is that's who she is. She shows up in a way that is, here's the expertise that I have. How can I share it and how can I be of service? So I want to turn this over to you and Jeff, and thank you for being here and for sharing your expertise so freely.
Thank you so much. You can hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And he said, Jeff, are you there? Can the folks hear you?
I am. Kenyatta, before we get started, let's give Anissa and her turnkey team a virtual hand clap.
Yeah.
And a high five. Paige is on the line,
right.
and Sheila's on the line. And today's our good friend Sheila's birthday, so we already sang happy birthday to her.
Hey.
So this is being naturally recorded, Sheila, so everybody's going to recognize your birthday.
Say happy birthday to Sheila.
I want to take a moment real quickly to thank Anissa for leading this virtual summit, inviting more than 40 speakers plus and growing at the moment. Thank you for taking the time and doing something special. This will go down in the annals of history for someone that didn't just talk about doing something, but an organization that really did something that was impactful. So thank you to Turnkey.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
And I think the next slide, I got pictures of you two, because I want to say thanks to you both. So you got your own fancy slide. And so very, very honored, to be here with both of you. And Jeff, so excited. I mean, you and I talk probably 15 times a day, it seems like, with everything that's going on. And so I'm honored to have you host, this talk. And then, of course, Anissa, for inviting me to participate. So again, thank you. And we're going to jump right into it. We have a lot of fun things to talk about. And I'm just so honored for the gracious introductions. And thank you to all the sponsors. This is going to be fun. So this talk is about the platinum triangle of communication superpowers. And here's just a quick agenda that covers a few bullet points that we're going to talk about today. There's going to be some information for you that'll help you in this time of navigating and leading crisis, because everyone is dealing with some challenges right now. And we think about those, we honor those, and we know everything has gone up and down and is going to continue to do that. And there's lots of uncertainty. And what we do know is that how you show up in the world right now is going to be critical. And then if there's more than two people involved or two or more, then communication is involved. So we're going to talk about why first behavior matters and why communication matters, that platinum triangle of communication superpowers, and then avoidable barriers to communication, and give you some actionable things that you can do to help overcome these barriers to communication that we'll learn about as we dig right in. Now, first I'll tell you, I'm an influencer. That is my behavioral superpower. I'm an outgoing, fast-paced one, which means I talk fast. So I hope you listen fast.
No, we couldn't tell that about you, Kenyatta. We couldn't tell
that. But you haven't figured that out? Okay,
no.
Good. I know. So first, what is communication? Well, a good definition here is communication is the process of passing information and understanding from one person to another. Sometimes people talk about that as the transference of belief, actually. And it's a process of transmitting and sharing ideas, opinions, facts, values from one person to another or one organization to another. So just a quick to think about what is communication, why is it important? Well, we all use it for lots of different reasons that we're going to get into. And when I talked about leading in crisis. This summit is powerful. There's a lot of speakers. I hope that you catch these additional speakers and, catch the recordings of past ones, because all of us are sharing things that can be applicable to leaders, individuals, families, HR, organizations, whatever it is. But here's the thing that we know. Globally, I put everyone has been punched in the mouth. And what do I mean by that is Mike Tyson has a quote that he was asked after he bit off Evander Holyfield's ear, which was, why did you do it? And he said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And so if you think about that for a minute, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And how I, internalize that is when the times of stress, emotion, fear, anxiety, when those things come at us, that's when our instinctual behavior really kicks in. That's when our learned behavior may take over or may not. It just really depends. And I really feel like globally, we've all been punched in the mouth right now with what we're dealing with COVID-19 and the changes that have happened in the very few short weeks. And so everyone's level of anxiety and stress and fear and all those different things are coming out, but also it's a time of adversity is when seeds of opportunity are planted as well, where we need to really think through what's happening and the messages that you're sharing with the people who you're talking to. So what are those messages from, to the people who need to hear from you, and are they listening, and is the message clear? Jeff, you and I were, talking about this the other day, how we communicate with other people, and, are they even listening? Yes. Sometimes, right? And then being clear in our messages. So it's why this information is applicable right now. So I'm going to shift and talk a little bit about behavior first and why this is so important. And you'll hear me speak a lot about the behavioral superpower universe. And, Anissa alluded to a little bit that I'm a behavioral superpower coach, as well as Jeff. We work together building this behavioral superpower universe that we call it, because it's fun to call it that. And so super we know, cool. Super cool to call it that. And we know that behavior causes 87% of performance issues in life and in business. And where communication exists, so does behavior. So within these dimensions, we know that we can help people with this information from the womb to the tomb, from hire to retire, from the classroom to the boardroom, and GED to PhD. It doesn't really matter. Whatever stage in a person's life, this information is applicable, because your behavior is going to affect how you show up. And we're going to dig into that a little bit before we get into the communication piece, because communication is driven by your behavior and vice versa. So I have a poll. Fun with polls. I have a couple of polls that I'll share with you through here so I can get a sense. Ooh, and the poll just popped up on the screen. I love it.
Hey, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It's technology. So it says, have you ever participated in an exercise to assess your own communication style? So if you can go ahead and click yes, maybe once, many times, no, and I never will, not yet, or the classic answer, I do not recall. So you can go ahead and pick one of those, and then Paige is going to, I think I can click, I don't have to vote, I'm getting rid of that button. So, and in a minute, I'm going to ask you for Paige will post in the chat what those results were. But I'm really curious if you've ever participated in something like that. And I'm going to keep moving while you go ahead and answer. And I'm going to talk about what we do. Freedom Empire Consulting and the Dream Smart Academy. What we do is we decode human behavior and we optimize performance. And we do that using validated behavioral insights. So the company that one of our resource technology partners, DNA Behavior, they have already done the 30 years of research and experience on this topic of behavioral and how people show up in the world in behavior. It's already validated in 125 countries, 11 different languages. I love that it offers 91% predictability over the long term, which is huge, because that means that's 9% is iffy, but 91% we know what's going on with people. And some of you on the call know what your behavioral superpowers are. And if you do know, at a point I'm going to ask you to put them in the chat. Okay. So
here's our polls. So 68% of the people said yes many times.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. So a lot of you are familiar with types of, assessments that tell you how you communicate and how you show up. So that's great. And that's good. And a few people said not yet. I think I see that down there. Thank you. And so we want to help people get a better understanding of how to manage yourself and others. And then we talk a lot about behavioral superpowers versus kryptonite. And when I speak about that, I always like to remind people about the Hulk. Everyone knows who the Hulk is, and they know what the Hulk does. Hulk smashes. That's what he does, right? He turns green, he gets big, and he smashes everything in his sight. That's his power. But also he has a kryptonite, just like Superman does, right? Something that where if he's not able to control it, or he has to stay away from it because that struggle could become a weakness, then that's not a power at the same time. So we talk a lot about that and teach teaching people that type of information. We're going to dig into that a little bit more. That process that we use is a multidimensional discovery process where we help people figure out what their superpower is, what their behavioral superpower is, and what their communication superpower is. So that process is fairly simple depending on which exercise you're taking. It's a 5 to 7 minute, or a 15-minute questionnaire kind of that you fill out, right? As a question or discovery process. The uncovering is basically where you'll have a conversation with myself or someone like Jeff, where we will coach you through how to interpret the information that you got from your report. And then what we call the unleashing the superpowers, right? And that's an ongoing process, and that can look a lot of different ways. I have a slide that's going to talk to you in some of the dimensions that we work within for that multi-discovery process. So quickly, the behavioral superpowers, right? I start here because we're going to transition into what's the difference between a behavioral superpower and a communication superpower. Well, they actually feed into each other, and we're going to show you how in a moment. There are 10 behavioral superpowers. So if you were to take the discovery exercise, you would wind up being one of these 10. Like I mentioned before, I am an influencer. Jeff, what's your superpower?
I'm a reflective thinker. So I bring
reflective
process.
Thinker. And how's that? Yeah, tell us.
So I bring process and methodology and structure to anything, any project, any group, team, family. I'm going to be the person that's going to be putting the brakes on people like you and those initiators in the superpower universe that want to speed through everything. I'm going to be slowing people down and really putting into process, putting into place, a well thought out plan, with some contingencies. Maybe too many contingencies, but there'll be some contingencies.
That's a great way to describe it. Now, and I mentioned Jeff and I work very closely together. We're always talking. He's in California, I'm in Phoenix, so we're always on the phone or a Zoom call. And he's exactly that reflective thinker. And for someone like myself who moves at a very quick pace, he's great because he does slow it down and he takes his time with certain things that he feels are important because he wants quality work and he wants to make sure that we've got everything covered. Now, for someone like myself, initially, that could have been a challenge, but because I know and understand what a superpower is, I look at it as exactly that. That's a power. So I just ask him what I need and I wait a couple days. And here's the beautiful part. When I get it, it's perfection. And so whatever he delivers is just done. It's just perfect. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I'm part of this team. So I love it. So it's important to know who you're working with and who's what superpower, right? So we know Anissa is an influencer like myself. Mm-hmm. And yep, she's an influencer. And so I love it. And so if you are on the call right now and you happen to know what your behavioral superpower is, then please put it in the chat. I would love to see who's on the call who already knows what their behavioral superpower is. Eileen, a stylish thinker. I can see it popping up there. So yeah, call some of those out, Jeff. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have Clayton Hoyle on the line. Dr. Kid Magdaleno, I know, is an initiator. He's a take charge person. Get it done. A reflective thinker. Clayton's a community builder. World-class community builder, by the way. So it's great that some of the folks already in the line already know some of their superpowers.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love this quote here. There's Ted, initiator, fantastic.
Ted, initiator, right.
Paige says adapter, probably. So that means she doesn't know. Paige, we got to figure this out for you. And I love this quote which says, to know yourself, you must sacrifice the illusion that you already do. Because we can get introduced to ourselves time and time again. However, because we learn new things, right? But this information, you might understand certain things about yourself, but not know why. And when you understand your superpowers, then you really do truly understand why. So here's why behavior matters and communication matters, is because we have something called communication superpowers. There's actually 4 of them. And we have behavioral superpowers, which there are 10 of them. So why I have these 2 images on the slide at the same time is that you can see the communication superpowers are over here: goal setting, lifestyle, information, and stability. And then as you see, the top half of this chart here says fast-paced, and the bottom says moved carefully. The right side is relationship oriented, the left side is results focused. Well, if you look on the right, you can see that all of the 10 superpowers fall somewhere on this chart. And so the fast-paced type of profiles are the strategists, the initiators, the influencers, the engagers. You can see that. The bottom half are the reflective thinkers. They typically move more carefully, the adapters. The right side is more relationship-focused superpowers, and the left side is more results-focused. And everybody falls somewhere on here, right? But then they still fall within their communication superpower. So my communication superpower, my first one is lifestyle. My second one happens to be goal setting. So as you look at this and see where you fall, if you don't know and you haven't yet taken the communication superpower exercise, you might not know exactly what your first top two are and how to interpret all that because you haven't seen it yet, but you can kind of guess what it might be based on this. This is what we know from the research. So that's why we put these two together, because communication superpowers and behavior superpowers, they really go hand in hand. But there could be some intricacies, because even though you might be an influencer, me and Anissa are influencers, but we're 1 in 4 trillion. I'm 1 in 4 trillion. She's 1 in 4 trillion. So we're not exactly the same. We're actually very different because our fingerprints are different, but our hands still look the same and have 10 fingers. That means we're influencers, but our fingerprints are unique. That's why it's important to know both of these information. And Jeff, you want to add anything there before I flip?
So Kenyatta, what I'm hearing you say is that there's a correlation to how you show up behaviorally to how you're going to communicate, right? What I like about your presentation is you're going to help people understand the behavioral correlation to how they show up in their communication style. Me, I'm a reflective thinker. I'm on this bottom left side of the quadrant.
Information.
And then I'm going to show up when I communicate. I'm going to be communicating facts to you, right? And if you're an influencer and that's not your primary mode of communication, there's going to be a communication gap. So our objective in this communication superpower is to close that gap so that we can have less friction and move forward toward our desired destination. So I'm looking forward to your rest of your presentation. It's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you. So what are communication superpowers? Basically, they are a proprietary solution to discover a person's unique communication and learning style. For the real-time customization of sales, marketing, service, and activities, and to enhance client engagement and relationship performance. And I just put the big old boom down there at the bottom because you read that and you're like, oh, okay. Like that's a mic drop. That's what we were able to do with this communication information. And when you understand your own superpowers or that of your team, your coworkers, your family, whoever it is you're dealing with, you can really, like you said, bridge that gap. So to dig in a little bit more, there's 4 communication superpowers. I put them up here, one big slide, so you can kind of see them, and you might guess which one you might be. And so again, my first one is lifestyle. That's where I'm at. Openness, verbalize, broad facts and graphics. I'm not in the information area over here. If any of you on the call know me personally, and I tell Jeff all the time, look, man, I need 3 bullets. That's it. Give me my 3 bullets. I'm out.
I got 3 paragraphs usually. I got 3 paragraphs.
Right.
Not 3 bullets.
Not 3 bullets. Now, of course, I want the facts. I understand, and I am analytical and all that. However, if it gets too much, too detailed, too this, I'm not interested. It is not what I want communicated to me, and that's probably not what you're going to get from me. I am goal setting. I am a visionary as an influencer. I'm always like, woo, this big picture of how to make things happen. And I want results. I'm very results focused as well. The stability, down here, maybe that's you. You might find yourself, feelings and soft tones, security. You want to be given the instructions. I know that's not my communication style. It never really has been, right? So when you look at this, you might be able to guess which one you think that you are. You're going to have an opportunity to do that. And we're going to dig into these profiles a little bit more on this next slide after this one, because I love this. Tony Robbins says here, Anthony, Tony, same thing. To effectively communicate, we must realize that we are all different in the way we perceive the world and use this understanding as a guide to our communication with others. So again, you need to know thyself. You need to understand how you are going to communicate because of how you perceive the world, and you need to be aware of how others and manage the differences, because a lot of communication friction comes because someone's talking this way, someone's doing it this way, and they're not meeting in the middle. Someone's usually trying to get someone to behave like they're behaving, right? Or they, don't like that someone's not behaving the way that they're behaving, and they're like, what's wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with them. It's how they communicate, right? And of course, these are things that you can learn to improve and get better at, and that's what we're going to talk about in the Platinum Triangle. Right. So here's a little bit more in-depth information. If you're wondering how to interpret these particular styles, these are some examples. So take a look. Goal setting, the strength of that is speaking directly and candidly. What could be a struggle or kryptonite could be too forceful, abrupt, and interrupting. Has anyone ever told me that I am too abrupt? Yes.
Yes.
They have. Well, I'm very frank and to the point. Go ahead.
Kenyatta, also, when we're looking at the goal setting piece here, people who are initiators, right? I think of people on the call. Ted McLyman is an initiator. Dr. Ken Magdaleno is an initiator. These are get it done people. So they're going to speak very directly to you. They're going to be maybe sometimes abrupt in their communication, but it's not because they're being rude. That's just part of their communication style. And then their learned behavior, they'll be able to smooth it out. So I'm looking forward to the rest of what you got here.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting, because we talked about, being abrupt and how that might be taken as rude
Yes.
when someone's just being, their communication style is that way. But
Yes.
when we don't truly understand these things, Jeff, about another person, we take it personal.
Yes.
And that's where the issue comes in, because we think that they're being that way with us. Well,
Yes.
No, they're just being that way, right?
And so,
but what it says, Exactly. Because sometimes, those things could, again, direct communication is not a bad thing. It's better than beating around the bush, in my opinion. But I'm someone who's pretty direct, so I would say that. What they want, it says provide options, get to the bottom line, present the opportunities. The lifestyle one, that's me, open and engaging. I might be too transparent and sometimes uninhibited. That's who I am, and so that might be a kryptonite for me. But what we want is openly expressive views. We want to be able to verbalize, and we want broad facts. People who are in the stability, they're going to show empathy and warmth. But a kryptonite could be they might compromise too much and maybe too diplomatic. And so they want relaxed environment. They want people to speak softly, which I don't do very well. You have to bring it down, share the feelings, and that's great. And then information, like yourself, you're going to provide the specifics and the details. Maybe too serious, Jeff.
You think I'm serious or no?
You're pretty serious.
Most of the time, right?
Yeah. Modest, and sometimes they might not be interactive because they're bringing it in, they're doing their thing, they're researching, they're doing their analysis. But to work with them, provide them the facts, provide specifics, and demonstrate transparency. So the next slide really is going to give you guys an opportunity. There should be a poll for you to guess which one you think you are. Are you a goal-setting communication superpower, lifestyle, stability, or information? So take your time and, do your guesses there if you don't know. And if you do know, then just go ahead and put it in there. We're going to keep going. Talk more about why these two things go together, behavior and communication. We want you to know who you are, so you can be who you are, and you can do what you are. So earlier I talked about how this information can be used for personal or enterprise solutions, and these are just some of the dimensions, and it's a long list, but it is. When there's people involved, everyone is dealing with these behavior and communication anyway. So leadership development, team performance, workplace, communication styles, behavior matching, classroom management. Jeff and I actually are opening up a charter school called Dream Smart Life Prep Academy, where this whole concept of behavioral superpowers and communication superpowers, it's a behavioral based school where this is the foundation. The teachers will know who their students are and vice versa, and administrators, because we know on the onset to have this as our language and our ecosystem, that there's so many things that we can do to really break down the communication barriers and just get to work and make sure people are valued and they're getting what they need. And that changes the game. And we just know this, it changes the game. So very exciting stuff. I absolutely love it. And this is why this is so important. And you hear us talking about these behavioral superpowers. And in a crisis, when you're already dealing with everyone getting punched in the mouth, well, team productivity might be going down. Employee productivity might be going down. Revenue might be going down. And we know that integrating this type of information into your organization, actually, these are the numbers that have been proven that drives those things up. Having access to this type of information about you and your team is going to increase all of these things across the board. And so right now is the time to really be thinking about how you can make a pivot and shift your charts if they're going in the wrong direction. And we're here to be able to help you do that. We have a couple things we'll share with you that are going to inspire you maybe to do that. And this is my first gift to you. If you want to know what your behavioral what your communication superpower is, please text Turnkey to this number. And you'll be able to get a link that you can take the 5 to 7 minute discovery exercise that will tell you which communication superpower you are, and see how you did. And Jeff, do we have the results from the poll of what people think they are? Just curious.
We do. So 28 goal setting, 28 lifestyle, and 28 stability, and 17 information, right? It's a nice little mix there. Right?
Yeah, and it's pretty even, it's a lot of 28s there, you said.
Right.
So interesting. All right. So if you are interested in finding out if or what your superpower is, we're giving you and you guys can probably hear that. There's some honking outside. But if you text that, then you'll be able to figure out what your superpower is. After this, I'll make sure that you get the information so that you can take that little exercise and find out. So see if you're right or if you're wrong. It's pretty cool.
Kenyatta, before you move on, I wanted you to clarify a point that says know who you are so you can do what you are. We talk about that a lot in our ecosystem. Just take 30 seconds to dive into that a little bit. It's a question of authenticity that we often talk about. Share that a little bit more.
Absolutely. So if you, hang on a second, I don't know. Someone's alarm is going on out there. I don't know if you can hear that. So absolutely. So when you have this information about your behavioral superpower or your communication superpower, it's an awareness that maybe confirms some things that you thought you knew about yourself, but then again, didn't understand it. And when you see it on a piece of paper and you read this and see that 91% predictability, this is how you're going to show up, you can then learn to unleash that superpower. And you'll stop being apologetic about the thing that maybe you used to apologize for. That was just you. When people don't fully understand you and how you're showing up, you'll realize that, okay, they may not ever, unless you show them that report, right? But that you're not doing anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. And then now you have this information, so now you can figure out, well, what should I be doing to avoid what I call the square peg round hole situation, which is that you're doing something that's draining you. You're in a job that you should not be in. You are in a relationship that maybe doesn't work. You are doing things that are so far out of your comfort zone. It's not about not going out of your comfort zone, but it's about getting in your genius zone. If you can do that because you know who you are, then do what you are and be who you are, then you just flourish and do what I call walking in your greatness, because that's what it's really about. And so that's what this information really has done for me, is that, I always knew certain things about me and I lived my life a certain way and was very self-aware, but this changed the game. It taught me things. And as we go deep through the coaching, things that I can just, it's helped me walk in my greatness. And that's, I guess, my best way to describe, to do what you are once you know who you are. So does that help? Is that good?
Tremendous. Thank you.
All right. So the next poll question is, do you consider yourself to be a good listener? We're going to dig into the platinum the platinum triangle of communication now. Do you consider yourself to be a good listener? And be honest when you answer this poll. As well. Absolutely. I try, however I can improve, not at all, or wait, what did you say? I don't know. Be honest, okay, when that poll comes around, okay? I would love to hear your feedback on that as we get into the platinum triangle. And while you're doing the poll, just a little reminder, some of you may have seen this, Dr. Moravian's elements of personal communication. What we know is this: 7% of communication is spoken words, 38% is voice and tone, and 55% is body language. 7% is the spoken word, and I would have to say even or the written word. That's why texting is so weird. And that's why emojis have been invented, I think, so they can give some tone and body language to a text. You might text a friend what you think is a joke, and they're not laughing, right? You put a little smiley emoji, they're like, oh, that's supposed to be a joke, right? So again, there's a lot that goes into communication, and we really have to be aware of the body language and things like that. So I wanted to just remind you of this fact if you weren't aware. And I love this little quote here: 10% of conflict is due to the difference in opinion, and 90% is due to delivery of tone and voice. So as an example, I might say, Sheila, it's her birthday. And I might say, hey, Sheila, happy birthday. Now, does that sound like I'm really excited that it's her birthday? Probably not. But if I said, Sheila, happy birthday. Okay.
Happy birthday to ya. It's different, right?
I know, right? Totally different. So here's the thing. The words are exactly the same, aren't they? Sheila, happy birthday. Those are the words, but my tone and delivery changed everything. So we're going to dig into that in a moment, but I wanted to just give you that example so you know where we're coming from, because we're talking about listening. We're talking about hearing, and we're talking about observation. The platinum triangle is listen, ask, and summarize. And that's what I'm going to dig into right now. Listening is the most important and effective of all communication skills, and it is the hardest to master. It requires mental energy and concentration. Why don't we listen? It's because usually we don't really care. And we're all concerned about us more than anything. Me, what do I think? So listening is hard. So let's start. Do we have any poll results? Let's hook that up real quick. What do we got?
We do. Can you continue to talk and I'll look at them real quick.
Okay.
So
All right. Cool.
Absolutely. 20%. Absolutely. 75%. I try. I'm in that middle ground there. Not at all zero. Somebody's lying, right? And then 5% of what did you say? So instant poll results.
All right, excellent. So most of you say you tried, but you can get better, right? Well, here's how you can get, here's how we go about getting better. Okay, we realize that listening really is the hardest thing. We got 2 ears and 1 mouth, but we tend to use our mouth more than the ears. But it's defined as making a deliberate effort to understand the significance of what is heard, right? And then I put in here, do you even care? Because first off, if you don't even care about the other person that you're having the conversation with, it's really hard to listen. So it really kind of starts with, do I care about what's happening here? And then we talk about body language. It speaks louder than words because it's listening with your ears, but it's also observing with your eyes. Because if you're having a conversation with someone and you think you're listening and they're saying something, but they're standing here with their arms crossed like this going, okay, yeah, I understand. I get it. Well, they're saying yes, but their body's kind of saying no, right? So when you think about listening, you've got to be listening to everything that's happening. But it's the hardest thing to do. And we're going to talk more about why it's so hard in a moment. But that is the first part of the Platinum Triangle. The first part is the hardest to do. So if you learn to master your listening skills and your observation skills and paying attention, being mindful, being in the moment, but even caring about the person who's doing the talking and being interested in getting the information they're sharing, and then making a deliberate effort to understand, then you got a good chance at becoming a better listener. Okay.
Kenyatta, I got one question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. What did you say?
What?
Okay. I'm kidding you. Before Kenyatta moves on, everybody, this is great information. If this is good information, please type yes in your chat box. Kenyatta, continue to go on.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Awesome. All right. So listening, first part of the triangle. Second part, ask questions. Okay, so if you're listening, then chances are you might have some questions to help with some clarification. So let's talk about the kind of questions that you might want to ask. This is for all kinds of conversations, you guys, not just business related, family and everything. Closed-ended questions. Those are very simple yes, no questions. I love yes, no questions because they just get to the point and give you the information you need. However, so have you ever asked someone a question? I always like to use little Johnny as an example. Little Johnny comes home from school and you say, hey, Johnny, did you have fun at Jimmy's house? Well, he's not coming home from school right now, but in the past. He'd come home and you'd say, hey, did you have fun at Johnny's house? And he says, yeah. And then he goes running off into his room. Now, he didn't give you any information other than yes, he had fun, but you didn't ask for any additional information. So if you've ever found yourself getting upset because you asked someone a closed-ended question and wondered why they didn't give you any more information, it's because you asked a closed-ended question and they gave you that. So don't get mad at them. Learn to ask better questions, right? And so, or a good follow-up question to a closed-ended yes, no question might simply be, why? Because if someone can answer yes or no to your question, they should be able to answer why. So that might be a good follow-up question, but closed-ended questions are great to get further clarification after you've listened to the person, okay? Open-ended questions, these are great. These can come in any different form, and it's really not more of a yes-no. It's asking for more information in a very interesting way. Now, for the sake of time, I usually go to lots of examples of these, but I'll give you one of my favorites is, tell me more about that. Now, that's so open-ended and broad that oftentimes, like if I said to little Johnny, I said, hey, did you have fun at Johnny or Jimmy's house or whatever? And he says, yeah. And I say, oh, tell me more about that. Well, he's going to go, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. And he's just going to start talking, right? He's going to be excited. He's not being interrogated. And you just open the door for him to tell you whatever it is that he wants. And you'll likely get a more truthful answer because he's just sharing and feels like he's going to share with what he wants to tell you. And so tell me more about that is just a really great open-ended way to get more information from the person that you're having a conversation with, or say, you know what, that's interesting. Tell me more, right? And the person's going to go, oh, okay, they're interested in learning more, and they're going to share with you what they want you to know, which is probably the truth of the matter. And it might be the most important thing to them, which is why they're sharing it. Okay, so asking good questions is critical. Comparative questions. Oh, so you said this. Does it mean the same thing as this? That's a good way to get a little bit more clarification. If you can ask summarizing questions. So what I hear you saying is, and we're going to dig into summarizing in a moment, short factual questions are like what, when, where, why, how, when, you know, those are the facts, right? Now, if you did that to little Johnny when he came home and said, what were you doing? Where'd you go? How long were you there? Who was there? Blah, you know, that sounds like an interrogation. So there's a time and a place for the what, when, why, where, who, and how questions. Use them sparingly, because again, if you use them in that way, it might seem like interrogating to the other person, and they might withdraw and not really want to be open with you. But if you find that happening and you're listening to the body language and watching their facial expressions, then you might realize, ooh, I might need to approach this a different way. Maybe I just might go, tell me more about that, right? Which is a very non-confronting way to get more information out of them. Pause in silence. The hardest thing to do, again, because we always want to talk, especially me. So I have learned behavior says, shut up, Kenyatta, right? Ask the question and let someone answer. Oftentimes we're getting ready to talk right before they're done, and we don't, or we think we already know what they're going to say anyway. So if you do ask a question, you have to learn the art of pausing, being silent, and giving them a chance to respond. Then listen and observe their answer, and then ask other questions. And then reflect on what it is they said. You might want to ask questions that show that you've been reflecting on that information, and you have some further questions to get clarification. So that's the second part of the triangle. Listen first, then ask, then summarize. This is powerful here because it's going to show that you were actively listening in the first place if you can actually summarize. So if, you know, I say to, you know, little Johnny, he tells me everything that's happening at, you know, at so-and-so's house, and I'm like, oh, so you guys did this, and so-and-so was there, and his mom made you sandwiches and everything. He's like, oh, she heard everything I said. Right? So it ensures my understanding of what happened. It builds the relationship. It confirms and clarifies the key points. And we can explore perceived contradictions. Because what if I interpreted something in one kind of way? You know, you've played the game a telephone when you were a kid. If you remember, someone in one side of the room turns to so-and-so and says, hey, I have a blue truck. And then by the time it gets all the way to the other side of the room, because you have to whisper it to someone and then whisper, when it gets to Jeff on the other side of the room, he's like, oh, Kenyatta, you got a red motorcycle? And I'm like, I don't have a red motorcycle. Who said I have a red motorcycle? Right. You know, has anyone ever come to you, Jeff, and said, hey, Jeff, I heard that you said this. And you're like, I didn't say that.
Absolutely. It's the communications gap that we talk about, right?
Yes, you know,
really
right.
Quickly,
so if you go ahead.
Really quickly, we got a question from Sandra. Ooh. Sandra asked about your last slide. Well, how long should you pause when you're in your situation where you're talking and you pause to listen? Great
question. I don't know the answer. Whatever feels like enough time, because too long of a pause gets weird, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. So long enough to where you feel like they've answered appropriately, you know, and it's this is why it's called the platinum triangle of patient communication, because you do have to be patient in that moment and wait the appropriate amount of time. And I don't really know exactly. I think it just depends on the situation. But I do know this, that if you ask someone a question, especially an open-ended question, and then you just pause and look at them, eventually they'll start talking again.
They will. And because number one, they're going to be shocked that you paused and took a moment to listen. But mm-hmm. I don't think there's a definite answer, but long enough for them to start talking again.
Yeah, and then it becomes like a staring contest. No one wants to give in, so you both can look at each other, and they're looking at each other, and no one's saying anything. Eventually, they're going to keep talking because they're like, well, do they want more information? You know, and when I do this in my class, it's fun because, you know, I'll pause for like exceptionally a long time where it gets weird, just to show that it can get weird if you pause too long. So it's a touchy one. Exploring new information, reinforcing openness and integrity, confirming common ground, and summarization could create opportunities to correct errors, you know, that are in the process, right? So listen, ask, and summarize. This is the platinum triangle of patient communication, okay? And I'm giving you very high-level examples here, but hopefully this is helpful as we move forward. But now I got to shift gears into the avoidable barriers, okay, effective communication. What's the biggest barrier of communication? Listening, okay? Again, remember I said it's the hardest thing to do. This guy on this side of the wall is like talking, you know, but there's something in the way, right? What are those barriers? Why are they not able to communicate? And often it's not listening. So let's talk about what some of the high-level barriers to effective communication are. Oftentimes we could be in conversation and someone is talking And all we are thinking is, ooh, I cannot wait for them to get done talking because I got this zinger that I'm going to give them when this is over, you know? So we're rehearsing in our mind what to say next. And if you think about situations where you've been in conflict, where it's not been maybe a pleasant conversation, maybe it was an argument, you know, type yes in the chat if you've ever been in an argument, you know, or had a disagreement with someone. And think about it. Why are you having a disagreement anyway? What is that? Well, one person thinks this and another person thinks this. This person wants one person to think how they're thinking. This person wants them to think how they're thinking. And the disagreement happens because they're thinking two different things. And the only way for someone to win is for someone to change their mind and start coming along with them, or they just agree to disagree. Okay, so which is it going to be? Are you going to agree to disagree, or are you going to be able to communicate in such a way that maybe that person does start thinking in your way? You know, I don't know. But ultimately, if you've ever been in a situation where things have gotten heated and over emotional, which is the next barrier, you know, maybe you someone who, you know, starts yelling at people or throwing things or stomping out of the house or slamming doors. I don't know. This might seem extreme, but it's not. Okay. People handle conflict differently. And a lot of times that itself is a barrier to communication, especially if over emotion. Now, we're not saying don't have emotions and feel emotions. What we're saying is when your emotions overwhelm you, then that can become a barrier, because if anyone's ever been over emotional with you in a conversation and you shut down, you stop listening to them. Well, then there's the barrier. So think about it. If you are being overly emotional with someone else in a conversation, they might shut down. It goes both ways. It's a two-way street when it comes to communication. So this is about self-awareness and acknowledging your own possible self-defeating, you know, mechanism for communicating, and thinking about where these barriers may be coming from. Right? So we have to listen, ask, and summarize, and then pay attention. The listening is the hardest thing. Being distracted, having conversations in the middle of driving or at the store, or, you know, in a busy office, or when kids are running around and you're trying to cook dinner. All these things are distraction, and they limit the ability to pay attention and listen, because it's just too many distractions. That's why everyone's got to be quiet at a golf game right before they hit the thing, you know, I mean, because it can be distracting. Wearing a mask is really having that persona where sometimes people might be people pleasers, right? They just want to do whatever they think is going to help the situation and make everyone happy. So what we know is that failure to communicate honestly about what your true feelings are, what you're thinking, is a barrier to communication, because then people are left wondering what you really think and what you really mean. For example, if someone says, you know, hey, Jeff, you know, are you okay? And then you respond and you're like, I'm fine. Well, when you say I'm fine, that means you're not fine. Okay. The way you said it means you're not fine. But now that person has to go, okay, wait, is he really fine? Okay, wait, maybe, I don't know. What does he need? How do I make this better? Right? He's not communicating his honest feelings, where in the moment, maybe he just says, actually, no, I'm not fine at the moment. I'm still a little bit upset. I need to think about this for a minute and, you know, move on, or whatever. Let's talk about this at 8 o'clock tonight, right? Well, 8 o'clock tonight, it's probably not even going to be an issue anymore, and you can just move on, right? So having these types of conversations in the moment, or dealing with a conflict at work, or, you know, professional development conversation, performance conversation, these are all things that you really have to think about how you're going to show up and communicate in that time. Having an agenda. Now, people might say that everyone has an agenda because that's how we communicate to get things done, right? And that's fine. You can have an agenda, but what you want to be careful of is being so hard and fast with getting your agenda that you aren't listening to what the other person is doing, because you're like, it doesn't matter what so-and-so says. At the end of this, I'm still going to get what I want. That's a different scenario. That, again, could be a barrier to communication. And then the last one, which I think is the most difficult and I think the most damaging, is prejudging and filtering. We all have our own preconceived ideas. We have our own value systems, how we were raised, what we think is important, our own political views, our own views about all different kinds of things that shape us. And if we prejudge and filter other people, that means that we are already not listening to them because of the things and the ideas that we hold valuable and true. And there's some very specific topics that are hot buttons for this exact thing: sex, religion, race, what slab of the earth you were built on, what color your skin is, whether or not you have tattoos, whether or not you've had an abortion, whether you're a woman, a man, who you sleep with. You can go on and on and on about the reasons that people prejudge and filter who you voted for, who you didn't vote for. Right? And that, again, I think is some of the most damaging one of these barriers, because it can just shut down entire groups of people or a person. And therefore, barrier to communication. I mean, there was a time not too long ago, 100 years ago, when women couldn't vote. That's an example of prejudging and filtering, right? So they come as big as that or as small as anything you could think of. And we also transfer this information to our children because they pay attention and they watch us. So that's just my little soapbox about that one, because I think that is one of the biggest barriers, is prejudging and filtering other people. So therefore, you are not listening.
Can I add something to this? You know, when you're talking about the open and honest communication and taking care of it right then, if possible, or as soon as possible, because if you don't do that, what happens is you get into this process of you nurse the hurt or the communication, hurt and the communication, right. And then you rehearse it, right? And so now it's becoming blown up, and then you begin to curse it, right? So it's a process of going down the rabbit hole of it. If the communication isn't taken care of as soon as you can humanly possibly take care of it, then it becomes something that's toxic, and that's that communications gap that we keep going back to. So absolutely, as soon as you can, honestly and openly communicate, so that you don't go down the dark place of having a toxic communication.
I love it. And that's in any application. Those are personal relationships, business relationships, everything. And right now, people are stressed, anxiety's high. So what message are you communicating, and is it being heard? Right. You know, are there things you, go ahead.
So any place where there's two or more people, this is pertinent.
Absolutely. And then, so a couple of things to overcome these barriers. You know, first off, who constructed it? Was it you? I'm looking into the camera. I don't know. But you might want to ask yourself that question. Was it me who put up this barrier to communication? Why am I not being heard right now? Why do I feel like no one's listening to me? Okay. So pay attention. Be present in the moment. Be mindful during those conversations. Become conscious of what you and the others are doing during the conversation. Are you in the car driving? Not the best time to be having a conversation. So if you feel like there's a barrier and someone's just not getting you, you first want to look within and go, what am I doing? And am I doing the best possible thing that I can do? Am I listening? Am I asking? Am I summarizing? Most people do not do this, okay, at all, which is why people fight all the time. So the next time you're in a conversation, be like, listen, ask, summarize, right? And see what happens. Or maybe it was them. And maybe if you feel like it is, ask them questions. You know, what did you understand by what I just said? You know, if you feel like they're not listening and they're checked out, try to bring them back. Ask good questions and then pause and let them answer, and then have and show curiosity about their point of view, even if you don't agree. And I think that's a huge one. You know, it's just having curiosity, just care about people and want to know how you can help them and how you can best communicate. And maybe that'll melt away some of the barriers, you know, at that time. So just to kind of bring it back, just to remind you, communication superpowers are important, behavioral superpowers are important, because if you think about it, all the things that I just talked about, how I'm going to listen, ask, and summarize is going to totally be based on my behavioral superpower and my communication superpower, because I'm going to want to talk about fun and lifestyle. I'm fast-paced, I'm outgoing. I'm not the reflective thinker like Jeff. You know, I'm not even like Anissa, even as an influencer, right? We're different. We have our fingerprints that make us unique. So how I listen, ask, and summarize is going to be different than everyone else. And that's why, again, know who you are, be who you are, so you can do what you are. And that is going to come into play when it comes to communication.
So, just as an FYI, we're getting the red light here. We got about 4 minutes.
I'm done.
Almost wrap up. Okay.
Yep. Thank you so much. Because right here is last slide before my last slide. I love this. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that has taken place in the first place. So I love that. And then again, thank you so much. So I was done to Anissa, to everyone else for allowing, you know, me to be on this seminar and the summit. Here's some of the speakers here. Here's a little slide just to say thank you again. And there's more to come. And as a final one, if you want to contact me, here's my contact information. I got a couple more gifts and then I'm out of here. So first, if you haven't already texted Turnkey to that number, if you want to discover your own communication superpower, then do that. I'll respond. Once you click it and hit that, then it's going to send you a little contact form. You got to fill out the contact form. And then I'm actually gifting 80% off a 30-minute uncovering coaching session. So I can go over that information with you, teach you how to read your report, and teach you how to unleash that information. And if you're an organization or know of an organization who might be interested in superpowering your own team, we actually have free 60-day trials of a team development package through DNA, where you can have your whole team figure out what their behavioral superpowers are, get some coaching as well. And then 10 people are going to win an uncovering session with me. So you might want to wait to see if you won before you buy one, either way. But that's it. That's all I got. I think that's actually my last slide. Oh no, there's slides after this that you guys Yeah, there's this stuff.
Anissa.
So I think that's
Anissa.
back to you, Anissa.
Scoot through that one. There was just a couple that I wanted to mention. Let's see where we are. Last but not least, we have been asked about our outplacement services. We have been asked about our career coaching services. And we've been asked about our crisis training programs. And so we've gone out to our network and we've asked folks, what can we do to give to our clients and that's special and uniquely priced? And the answer has come back, let's throw in. And so what that looks like is basically a name your own price opportunity. And so that looks like outplacement coaching and retained leaders programs for what your organization feels is a good fit for your budget right now. And of course it is a one-time, it first come, first serve. If the folks that have volunteered to do this work get full up, we'll put you on a wait list. But the other thing that I also wanted to mention is that come back to our Leading in a Crisis Summit often. Like I had said, you can keep going through that, or actually you'll just keep going through all the way to the end to our contact information would be great.
Right here?
There,
oh,
right
here. Okay, there we go.
We would love your feedback. If there is a talk, a subject, a specific webinar that we're missing, let me know. We will rattle the trees to find an expert that can support you in your goals. I am so appreciative of you, Kenyatta, and you, Jeff. Your passion for this work, the work that you're doing with your charter school, and your commitment to this, even the giveaways that you've brought to the table just shows that you are sincere and committed to this work. And I really appreciate how both of you show up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. This was wonderful. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, Anissa, and thank you, Jeff, for hosting. This was fun. Thanks for everyone who got on the call and participated. To answer someone's question, I just saw in here, Bettina said, how do you get in the drawing? All the participants are in the drawing. So you're just automatically in that. So yeah, you just registered.
And the good news about that is it's randomly drawn. Our technology is going to go zzz and send Kenyatta those who have won.
Absolutely. And I will be, and I have your contact information so we can keep in touch. Thank you so much.
Exactly.
Kenyatta, drop the mic. Drop the mic and exit stage right.
Later. You guys are the best. Have a great day. And stay safe and healthy, everyone.
All right.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. I think I can stop sharing.